What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllNBA. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler. Legs, how are you enjoying your day off in between the finals games?
Good, man. I was over at the arena for some media availability. I did some stuff with NBA Entertainment, which is going to be pretty cool, I think. We just did a little kind of feature on some film breakdown that they're going to edit down and put out on ESPN Social. So I'm excited about that. A good opportunity for me to do that. Got to listen to some interviews over there and some interesting stuff, listening to Tyrese Haliburton, I think most interesting. He didn't say this, but I just, the vibe and just, I think in his general demeanor, he's going to play. Look, he'd have to be out there on one leg to not play. It still feels like he knows he's going to be pretty limited. And I feel terrible for him. I feel terrible for the series because, this can be very tough for them to win a game if Tyrese Haliburton is a non-factor offensively the way he was the other night. And again, he didn't say that, but one of the things he did say was if this were the regular season, he thinks this potentially could be up to like a 2-week injury. So that tells you all you need to know right there. He's going to try to gut it out and play, but again, I don't know to what extent he's going to put any pressure on OKC's defense. And if that's the case, this is going to be very difficult for Indiana to pull this off.
And to your point, he had this in his post-game interview, like he's waited his whole life to be here. He's in the finals. It's not guaranteed you'll make it back to the finals. No matter how great you are, great team you're on, you only sometimes get one chance at this. And so even a young player, it's hard to balance that with, hey, but I want to protect my long-term future and all of those different things. So I feel for him. And I feel for all Pacers fans because that's a tough spot to be in where you feel like you want to push your body to the limits, but sometimes the limit is injury risk. And I just think that's what this feels like. It feels like injury risk, and that's always a tough spot to be in.
Well, I think the problem is as a player, you kind of know that whatever it is you're feeling is tight to the extent you're really scared to push it. You're scared to accelerate. You're scared to decelerate. You're scared to jump. Because it's so tight, anything could happen at that point. So obviously, if you're out there playing that conservatively and you can't make sharp movements, the one thing I just said to someone, Tyrese Haliburton was a catch and shoot 3-point guy. Maybe there's a way to still have an impact, right? Who knows? You could maybe get a few off and make a few shots and help your team. He's not really. Like his threes are almost always off the dribble. And so to do that, you've got to get separation. And then he goes to that little step back, the 1-2, either direction. But that requires you to push off both feet to get the separation. I don't know that he's going to be able to effectively do that. And certainly, getting downhill against the defense this fast, if you're limited, going to be tough, man. So you add it all up. And like I said, he'll be out there and he's going to do everything he can. But, you're sensing a resignation on his part that he knows he's going to be incredibly limited. And what does that do to their offense overall?
It's always tough. We'll have to see what happens. There are a couple days off here, so we'll see what the updates are as they come. I'm excited for today's show, though. Later in the show, we're going to be joined by Fran Fraschilla, ESPN's college basketball expert, and he's been down at USA Basketball Camp, I know, this week. He also is an expert on the draft, and the draft is less than a week away, or actually exactly 1 week away. So we're going to start I know you're shaking your head here because
I'm shaking my head because that was what everybody was talking about today after the interviews and stuff and just milling around with other, media people, whatever. And everyone was kind of like, wait a second, what? Yeah. Draft's next week. Like, think about how short this time period has become. And it didn't used to be that way. That there was felt like a good 3 weeks, right? Preparing for the draft. And now it's like, if this thing goes to Sunday, goes to a game 7, everybody flies home on Monday. You get home, you get settled home Monday night. You wake up the next day is Tuesday. The draft's 2 days later.
Yep.
Like, even for these teams involved, like what they have to do to prepare for the draft. So, yeah, it's just hard to believe the way that the finals, they start a little bit later, they get stretched out more than they ever have, and now you get the draft right behind it. And then what's after that? Immediately followed by free agency, immediately followed by the summer league to get our first look at the rookies who were just drafted. And you add all that up and you get to mid-July. It all kind of just runs right into each other. That's why I was shaking my head. It's like hard to believe the draft is like next week.
Next year or next season is already started with some of these trades. It'll be wrapped up. The offseason will be more or less wrapped up here in a month. I'll see you in Vegas here in like 4 weeks. And it's crazy to think that the season has not ended. And in 4 weeks, the next season's offseason will have already ended. It just happens quick. But it starts earlier every year. And this year it started extra early with a trade that has already happened where the Orlando Magic have, in my opinion, pushed all of their chips in. Gone all in to acquire Desmond Bane from the Memphis Grizzlies. It cost them KCP, Cole Anthony, and 4 picks and a pick swap. Let me give you, we have it here on the screen here. Look at all these picks. Number 16 pick this year, which is pretty good. Then they're going to get most likely via Phoenix, the first round pick next year, 2028 first round pick, 2030 first round pick, and then a 2029 first round pick swap. That is a lot of capital for a guy in Desmond Bane. And yet for me, Legs, my first initial reaction when I saw this trade was, I love this for Orlando. What do you think? What were your first thoughts when you saw this trade go down? And we'll start on the Orlando side.
I loved it for the Magic too. It's an awful lot to give up. I mean, let's be honest about it. That's a lot. And I think a lot is relative anymore. I'm not sure how I view it anymore. I mean, I thought the Gobert trade, what they gave up to get Rudy Gobert, and they were just intent on transforming their defense completely. And they gave up all of that for a guy that limited offensively. So same thing here. 4 draft picks is a lot. They also gave, guys that can play, that are functional rotational players in addition to the 4 picks. But here's the deal. What does Orlando have? Where are they positioned right now in the Eastern Conference? They've got 2 young, I think one guy that could potentially be legitimate all-league player eventually in Banchero as a forward. And then they got Franz Wagner. And now you might even like Wagner better than Banchero. You and I talk about this a lot. Yeah. But regardless, however you view him, he's a really big-time offensive player. So you got your offense built around these 2 guys. You got Jalen Suggs there, who is one of the best on-ball defenders in the league, has come a long way with his offense. Yeah, love him. But this team shot 31% from the three-point line last year. 31%. And you'd watch them and go, well, these 2 guys are so good. Like they're the only team in the league whose top 2 players were 6'10" and up. So they got this unique thing, these versatile forwards that are great size, so they can shoot over the top of guys. They can physically, because they're both strong and they're powerfully built. Both guys can beat you around the basket. They can beat you off the drive. Banchero, and they're both good passers. But man, are they a poor three-point shooting team. So therefore, those guys get guarded differently. I mean, they weren't just a bad three-point shooting team. It was like relative to the rest of the league, it was like embarrassingly bad. So they had to address it. Most guys that shoot the ball on the level of Desmond Bane, who, by the way, is not just a shooter, he can also handle the ball in ball screen. He had a lot of double-digit assist games last year, did some of those in the playoffs. So he's a multi-dimensional offensive player who just happens to be a 41% three-point shooter, and that's mainly what he's known for. You got a chance to add that. Most teams hold on to those kind of guys. They hold on to him because, number one, he also guards. He's a pretty good defender. So he's not a total liability on that end. He's got multi-dimension to his offensive game, big-time shooter. Teams hold on to those guys. So to think that a guy like that would be available, you got to go for it if you're the Magic. One of the best defenses in the league already in place, 2 legitimate offensive stars to build your offense around, 3rd guy in Suggs, who's an elite defender and a solid offensive player. So what are you missing, man? Somebody that can spread the floor, somebody you've got to pay attention to with their three-point shooting, somebody who you can put the ball in his hands and run ball screen as an initiator, and he's perfectly fine doing that. And they did that. They saw an opportunity. Jason Tatum's out all next year. There's an opportunity right now in the Eastern Conference. Cleveland, as good a year as they had, they got bounced in the postseason, the second round. So you look at the rest of the East, the Knicks trying to figure out, they got a coaching. They're looking for a new coach. Like there's uncertainty at the top of the Eastern Conference. And the Magic are looking at it saying, we've got the pieces in place with an elite defense. We just need this. And one of those guys became available and they went for it. I love it from Orlando's standpoint.
So I want to go to the last part you said there first before we break down some of the other parts of this. I think that this signals a couple different things. So like when trades like this happen, you see, okay, what is the league evolving into? And one, the East is a little weak with the Tatum injury. So you take the Celtics out of there. The Cavs, I think, are perceived as beatable, as great as they are, perceived as beatable. Indiana, New York, there's an opening now. So I think that's part one, is the East feels a little weak. But number two, Legs, I think 4 picks and a pick swap is a lot for Bane for most teams. But the Orlando Magic, to me, are a team that has very smart, unselfish, hardworking players. They lack shooting. And Bane, to me, is a very smart, hardworking, unselfish player. And you add him to that mix. And I think another trend we're seeing, I've actually talked about this all year, and it's really proven true in the playoffs. One thing that I think the NBA is evolving towards ever so slightly is, hey, Indiana won because their pieces fit and they play together. The Magic needed shooting, but you can't just add some guy that gets his shots up. This is a guy in Bane who's versatile offensively, but doesn't need to take 25 shots. He'll have games he takes 11. He'll have games he takes 25, whatever the game gives him. And I think they look at that and say, can we be like the Pacers? Different style. We're more defensive. We have our bigs that we play through our bigs. But can we be a team that next year has a top 4 of Suggs, Bane, Franz, Paolo, that's smart, versatile, good pedigree? Those guys, to me, feel like they're going to play together and make a team that is greater than the sum of the parts. And that's why I like this move.
Completely agree. I think he's plug and play and doesn't disrupt rhythm in any way. If he's going to be welcomed by their top 2 guys, particularly, more space to drive, more opportunities to play one-on-one, depending on how you utilize him. And I'm a big fan of Jamal Mosley, by the way, as well. And I never met him until this year. I did a couple Magic games, including the one playoff game. And they played Boston, so tough, and beat Boston in that playoff game. I called. So impressed with they snapped Cleveland's 16-game winning streak that they had this year. I called that game, and it was all about their defense. And so they've got a culture there. They're building it the right way. The things that matter, the priority list is in place. They've got talent at the top, but you can't win in this league at a high level if you're that anemic from the 3-point line. And that's what they addressed. And people might get caught up in the 4 picks. And here's the truth. If you're the Magic, where are you expecting those picks to be? In the bottom 10 of the first round, year after year, all of those picks. Because you're expecting now with this young core and the guys you have to top, particularly Banchero, you're expecting to be in the mix in the Eastern Conference to make a run. If that's the case, you're picking in the bottom 10 year after year. So that's part of it. When you evaluate these picks, that's a big part of it, is where did these picks ultimately end up falling? And It's a crapshoot down there. Now I'm not saying you can't get a great player there. You can, but there's a lot more guys taken in those picks that end up being role players or don't pan out at all, then become starters or become guys that have long-term high impact careers. That's just the truth of it. Go back in the history of the draft. So I think the risk isn't as great as people think by giving up the picks when your core is this young, and he's only 26. You bring in a 26-year-old into the mix, and he makes a lot of money. I think he's got $160 million coming to him over 4 years. That's a lot of money. But again,
$40 million
sometimes, Adam, I don't even know what real money is in the NBA anymore. Like, is that a lot of money? Like, I'm not sure. Like, go around the league and start pulling up salaries and rosters, and you'll be like, he makes what? So I don't even know anymore. I know this. He's 26. He's highly productive. He plays both ends. He can play on or off ball as a shooter or a ball handler in this league, facilitator. Adam, to that, I love it. Absolutely love it. I see no downside for the Magic in doing this. And then from Memphis' standpoint, I think it was a little bit cold water on their face this year with what they went through. Now, they had a lot of injuries, and they had a lot of starting lineups. They fired their coach right before the playoffs were about to begin. And then they're down 58 points in the first playoff game to Oklahoma.
That's right.
Okay, so
I think
hold
up a second, the legs. Can we put the Memphis thing to a side? Because I want to close out on Orlando, because I got more to say there, and I kind of want to break it into two halves here. There's one other value of picks here, first round picks, because I agree with you. Picks have different value to every team. And what picks represent to a team like Orlando is flexibility. They are the lever that allows you to make trades. And them using 4 of them in this trade is basically saying we're going to use all or at least most of our ability to change our roster for this. And that's why it's valuable, because I agree with you. Those actual picks, not value to them, but their ability to trade. They're going all in with this team because now they don't have a ton of flexibility. And the other thing, I guess there's a third trend I see in the NBA with this move, and that is that I think teams are going all in earlier than before. OKC, they have all the flexibility because they have a million picks and all these great young players. But look at teams like Indiana. They're young. They have a lot of young players, and yet they still feel like they're up against it. Like we have to make big decisions going forward. I think Orlando, typically in years past, a decade past, Orlando might run it back another year, try to collect a couple more young players, play it slow, and then a year from now, then we'll start to move forward. I think Orlando looks at this and says, Paolo's going to get paid a ton of money. We're going to have guys making Suggs already going to start making a lot of money. We have to go all in earlier. They have 4 playoff wins with this core, not series, playoff total wins. And yet they're already at a position where they say, this is it. Let's push our chips in. Desmond Bane, this is our chance to make it to the finals. And when you said they have no downside, they do. It might not work, and they might not have that much flexibility, but I salute them because I like the vision and because I like that teams go all in. I think more teams make the mistake of playing it too slow than playing it too fast. They seem to say, this is what this era is going to be about. Let's see what it does.
Well, here's what's changed in the league. The window of opportunity for team success has shrunk dramatically.
Yep.
You don't keep rosters together anymore and think about a decade-long run. I mean, we'll see if Oklahoma City's the exception to that. The way they've built this, we've talked so many times about what's in place there. They've got the right coach, it seems. They've got this young roster. They got a superstar offensive player. They've got a great defense they've built. And then it seems like it's an egoless hierarchy. So maybe they're going to be the exception. For the most part, that's not the case, man. These things fall apart. Injuries, player inclination, coaching dissatisfaction from the front office. These things fall apart way quicker than they used to. So you go for it when you think the opportunity might be there to kick the door in. And I think they look at their team and they think that this is an opportunity to do it. I'm okay with it. I see some people talking about and it's fair. Well, these, hey man, you could get good players with those picks. Yeah, you're right. And somebody said, hey, Bane was the 30th pick. You're right. But you already have Desmond Bane, a proven product. So give me that at 26 years old, then rather than go find another one and hit that home run. It's hard to do. It's hard to do, man. You can always pick exceptions. Tony Parker, hey, great. Let's go over the history of the draft, though, and let's go 25 to 30, and let's look at those picks. Most of those guys are as short term in the league, or they're rotational players, role players. Very few guys do you hit it with on the level of Desmond Bane. And at 26, if he's 31, different conversation. He's 26 years old. He fits right in with what they have going on with the youth of their top guys.
Well, one reason he fits, you mentioned the shooting, but he's not like Luke Kennard, right? We're going to have him stand in the corner or come off of a pin down and then you take a shot and that's the value. His shooting has compound value to them. And I'll give you one reason, obviously, because he can shoot on the move. He's got a good handle to where he can create shots and pick and roll and pull up on the move and knock it down with efficiency. He's one of the best shooters from all spots on the court, not just threes. He can get into the mid-range and rise up. But why I think it's especially important to them, this is now a huge year, in my opinion, for Paolo Banchero, because prior it was hard to get switches for him. And he's such a size mismatch because they didn't have, you run a pick and roll with Suggs or Anthony Black. Teams aren't jumping out at that for the three. They'll allow that. Now you have a guy, and even KCP, who can one dribble pull up, he's good at that, but he's not doing anything dynamic. Now you have a guy, if you run a pick and roll with Franz Wagner and Bane or Paolo Banchero and Bane, you're generating switches. You're putting pressure on a defense now to make changes. And Paolo Banchero's been very good. I think he has an efficiency rise to make in the coming years, but this should help with that because I think he's going to see more mismatches next season than he's seen at any point in his career so far.
Totally agree. And I'm gonna finish the Magic talk with this because I know we got Fran coming on in a few minutes. They're not done because to me, they still need a natural playmaking point guard. Whether that is a guy that you get as a starter and you play Suggs Bane with him sometimes, but more importantly, just as long as it's a guy in your rotation that makes the game easier for other people. Because look at all the guards on their roster. None of those guys were natural point guard. Not Suggs, not Anthony Black, not Cole Anthony, not Markelle Fultz when they had him. None of those guys. They had this collection of hybrids, played a little bit of both. None of them a great three-point shooter. None of them a great playmaker. That's what their roster consisted of. And so now they get a guy that absolutely stretches the floor as a shooter. But I still think if there's one more thing they need to add to the roster, find a more natural playmaking point guard. And if you can add that to the mix and get that guy 20 minutes a night somehow to make the game easier for all these other guys we're talking about, now you're looking at them as a team. You say, man, that's a legitimate threat in the Eastern Conference.
They might also need some shooting. I mean, one guy helps you out, but when you see that how much of an outlier they were on shooting, Bane helps a lot. But they probably still need another guy that you can put in that rotation.
That's fair. Yeah, to go hunt one of those too, because now if you got one on each side of the floor, good luck with the traffic you send at Banchero and Wagner. Good luck with that, because now you're 100% right. One guy helps dramatically, but now teams can start to figure out ways to stay home with him and still give help because you're daring some of these other guys in their rotation to make shots. You had a second shooter, even if it's just a role-playing shooter.
Right.
That's a big deal when that guy's on the floor and giving him minutes with Bane. Now you really have a hard decision to make on where that help's going to come from.
They were very competitive against Cleveland 2 years ago. And I know this year things went poorly for them. Still competitive, in the playoffs. They were so clearly outmatched, and Boston had that 3-point advantage. They were competitive. So I look at this and I go, I think Orlando was always a sleeping giant. I've loved them for the last couple of years. We've been talking about them. And I think that they are prime position to be a team that we look at next year and say, hey man, why not? Why not them to make an Indiana run? Real quickly though, before we get to Fran, just your quick thoughts here. Jaren Jackson Jr. and Ja Morant now. I don't know what Memphis is going to do here. They were the 3 seed like 2 months ago, Legs. It wasn't that long. Maybe 3 months ago, they were the 3 seed in the West. Obviously, things ended poorly. But when I look at this, they have picks, but they're not really in teardown mode. What do you think about the future of the Memphis Grizzlies now with Ja and Jaren Jackson Jr. and a whole host of picks?
Don't love it. I mean, and part of the problem is I just think you have to at some point factor in what's your reliability confidence factor in Ja Morant being healthy when it matters. You think about this year, he had that injury and he's taken a lot of crazy falls because of the way he plays. It's so unique to have a guy that size be that explosive, but he also weighs 160 pounds. So you're in the air, any contact, you end up flying. And so what I saw when he came back from that was a much more reserved approach. And if he's not playing with reckless abandon because he's not a pure shooter, and that's still a challenge for him, he's not the same player. And even if you reduce that by 10%, 15%, whatever percentage you want to attribute to him playing in a more reserved way, he's not the same. But if he plays the same way, he's very good chance he's going to end up having a shorter career and it hurt all the time. That's a tough thing for them to deal with. So I don't love what they're left with. I really do love Jaren Jackson Jr. as a player, and he plays both ends and all that. I'm not sure I'm loving where Memphis is situated right now. I don't know if Thomas Isla is the right answer as a coach. I have no idea. I need a much bigger body of work to know that. So there's just too much uncertainty there for me as far as Memphis is concerned.
All right, well, let's take our break because I want to get to our guest, Fran Fraschilla, a fellow international hoops lover. I can't wait to hear his thoughts on the draft as well as USA basketball. I know he's watching that closely this week. So we're going to get to him, but let us know in the comments what you think about the Orlando Magic. Are you buying them as I am? Let us know. First, let me tell you about the Hall of Fame app. Have you ever done this? You're making a parlay for a game. and you're just going with gut feel. Oh, I think this is going to happen. I think this is going to happen. And then all of a sudden, all the legs of your parlay hit except for one. And then you come to find out, why did I bet on that guy making threes? He hasn't made a 3 in 5 games. Well, the Hall of Fame app really has solved that problem, because what they do is they provide insight into all the different data trends and things that are going on in the league. So if you're putting together a parlay, you hop on that Hall of Fame app and you could put in the different things you're thinking about. I'm chewing on this, I'm chewing on that. And it'll give you feedback about your parlay and say, hey, there's some risk here. Here's the most recent trend with the player. And it'll help you curate it. And I love it because, one, it was founded by lifelong sports fans who just happen to be giant data nerds that graduated from Ivy League schools. But what I like about it is you can make a parlay in the app, right there in the Hall of Fame app, and it'll execute that in whatever it is, whatever sports book it is you like to use. You can finally have a leg up on Vegas by using historical data, matchup grades, leg correlation tools, and player performance insights. And it's really easy to, you don't need like some statistics degree to use it. It's super intuitive and it helps you out. It's got a 4.9 rating on the App Store and over 6,000 5-star reviews. It's safe to say the Hall of Fame app is already a winner and helped a lot of people fix their parlays and their bets. If you're betting on sports and not using the Hall of Fame app, that's just leaving money on the table. And for a limited time only, our listeners not only get a 7-day free trial, what do you have to lose, but they also get 50% off their first month when they use that code ALLNBA at checkout. Just download the Hall of Fame app on iOS or Android, or visit HOF.com and enter the code ALLNBA, and you'll be all set. Also want to tell you, got our presenting sponsor, FanDuel. It's the best place to find all your favorite player props. And now you can make the smarter play with performance trends. Once the game starts, that's when things get interesting. You can combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. If you're betting on the finals, by the way, tomorrow, bet on Shea to win finals MVP. It gives you slightly better odds than just betting the game straight up. And if the Thunder win, you know that he's going home with the finals MVP. If you don't already have FanDuel, it's not too late to get in on the action. You get started with 200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/AllNBA to join today. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Must be 21 or older in present select states, or 18 plus and present in DC. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit FanDuel.com/RG. All right, now we welcome in our guest, ESPN's college basketball expert, Fran Fraschilla. Fran, how are you doing today?
Outstanding, Adam. Up in here in Colorado Springs, beautiful weather, out of the Texas heat where I lived for 19 years. All is good. And you mentioned USA basketball. I have spent some time watching AJ DeBanza, who you guys are going to be talking about the next 15 years. So they've got a terrific group, and they're going to be heading to Switzerland to play in the Under-19 World Cup. I think they leave Tuesday, so they play next 2 weekends from now.
Well, that'll be Fran, great. I want to ask you right away, just since you mentioned it, like, and being there for that. When you go into those type of situations, and I know you already have a pretty good feel for all these guys, but there has to be moments probably anytime you're in this type of setting where guys get together for 3 or 4 days of workouts where somebody pops off the page that you didn't expect, where you go, holy hell. Like, this is a lot better even than I thought, especially when you see him relative to that level of competition.
Yeah, there's a kid named Mikel Brown who you guys will hear about. He's going to Louisville, 6'3" guard, can shoot it. I hate to put this, you've been talking so much Magic stuff, but he reminds me of Markelle Fultz with a great jump shot. You know, I love Markelle, and obviously injury set him back in his career, but a scoring point guard with terrific athleticism. He'll be the starting point guard for USA. The team is coached by Tommy Lloyd at Arizona. We had NBA scouts in here the last 2 days, Legs. I would say of the 30 kids who showed up, at least half of them, at least 15 are going to play in the NBA. They all aren't going to make this team, but you have a guy like Koa Pete going to Arizona, who's a beast. AJ DeBanza, who's every bit as good as we think he is as far as going to BYU next year. No Carlos Boozer's son. Cam Boozer's going to be a top 3 pick. He's taking the summer off. He's at Duke. It's really fun for me because I get to see and talk to the kids. And then when they get to college and then potentially the NBA draft, I have a good feel for them behind the scenes.
Yeah. I want to ask you this one to kind of start us off as we get ready for the draft here, which
Yeah.
is all three of us hoops purists. We love the game at all levels. So when
Yes.
you watch the NBA, it's evolving, it's always evolving. What skill set do you think is gaining in importance when teams are going to the draft now, they're identifying this is something that players need more than ever?
Well, I think it's obvious, and this started with KD and Steph about 15 years ago. We had a time in college, particularly high school, maybe even in the NBA, where it was hard, Adam, to find shooters. Legs came along 25 years too soon. Now,
Yeah.
when you look at a kid, and I've talked to my NBA friends, and you guys know this, when you surround the great players in this league, as you guys see every night, with non-shooting, I mean, that's a problem. And so these kids that can really shoot it, and I really do credit guys like KD and Steph 15 years ago, they made it cool. Klay Thompson, because we had an era where everybody was going to the hole and playing one-on-one during that Iverson era, right? No offense to Allen, obviously, he's one of the greats of all time. But I think shooting's become so much more important. And I think it really can devalue a young man's stock or raise it. And there's a couple guys in this draft that I think can really shoot it. We can talk about them. But so I would say shooting, that would come to mind. Makes sense to me. Now, athleticism matters, but all things being equal, I think the shooting's critical.
Now, Fran, so let's get into it here. And now I'll give you an easy one right off the bat. Well, let's go
Yeah.
at the very top of the draft. Okay. So I saw him for the first time when he was 14 or 15. Fran
Yes.
Fraschilla. Fran Fraschilla is the guy that said Cooper Flagg. Take a look at Cooper Flagg. He was 15 years old. And so
Yeah.
I decided to go pull up some video of Cooper Flagg. And immediately what jumped out to me was the competitive edge. And
Yes.
before I even saw the other stuff. So now here we go. Fast forward a few years later. Here he is. He's going to clearly be the number one pick in the draft. Ends up going to a situation to compete next year in Dallas. Really kind of crazy. But give me just your overall thought process on him. I think he is can't miss star. I
Yeah.
hate using that expression a lot of times, but I feel that way about Cooper Flagg. Your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, let's talk about the Mavericks. They're going to have a dual track the next few years, right? Hopefully AD's healthy. Hopefully they get Kyrie. Maybe Kyrie comes back February, maybe not at all. Who knows? But if Kyrie's back and AD's back, let's even look to 25, 20, 26, 27. At least for a couple of years, you have Cooper Flagg playing with two, ridiculously talented players. And then yet at the same time, the Mavs can build out for the next 15 years with him, like they were supposed to do with Luka. Okay, it's another story. But they got lucky. Let's face it, they got lucky. They
Yeah.
really did the way the balls bounced. Legs, I like to give guys comparisons. Trey Johnson, maybe he's Devin Booker. This guy, VJ Edgecombe, is Victor Oladipo. Who knows? And maybe upside Dwayne Wade. We don't know. But when I look at Cooper Flagg, he's an amalgamation of old school Tom Chambers, Bobby Jones, Andre Kirilenko, a little bit of Kevin Garnett. He shot 44% from three in his last 27 games as a college player. I would say it this way. I'll wrap it up this way. He does a lot of things extremely well, maybe nothing great, but really, really well. But I think you added to it the competitiveness. That's what he is best at. He plays with a chip on both shoulders. He always has. He's got a little nasty, and I think he's going to be a phenomenal, NBA player.
That competitiveness, though, is in and of itself a skill. And I know you're down at USA Basketball now. You were last year watching a lot of these guys that are in the draft this year play. I have to imagine that part pops off. You get into a college season, guys are going to have good games and bad games, high energy, low energy. But when you put the best players together, how much does that skill, the competitiveness, stand out amongst all the greats?
It's funny, Adam, watching AJ DeBansa, who's 6'9", and he'll likely be maybe the number one pick next year. To your point, in a tryout situation with 30 alpha dogs, and Cooper Flagg went through this with USA Basketball a number of different times. They're alpha dogs in Springfield, Illinois, and Detroit and Philly,
Right.
But not when they all come together. And Cooper Flagg has always been an alpha dog. Everybody in the gym and on his team knows he's the guy. And I can remember, as Leg said, I saw him play as a 15-year-old, and he was playing on the USA under-17 team. They won a gold medal. He was all tournament, and he averaged 10 rebounds a game as a 15-year-old. So it's evident even amongst great players, and I'm sure it's like that in the league. In a league of really competitive guys, there's a handful of guys that just take it to another level.
All right, beyond him, because I think that's an obvious one. That's an easy one for Dallas,
Yes.
right? Despite the Luka trade, I don't know they could screw this one up, Fran. I don't think they could screw this one up. All right.
Yeah.
I think you and I probably have similar thoughts on that. So let's go beyond that. San Antonio with the number 2 pick, and the guy right now penciled in on most draft boards is Dylan Harper. He was teammates, obviously, with Ace Bailey. Skill set will let you get into, but some people go, well, how can you have the 2 and 3 picks in the first round of the draft? You're a 500 team in college. So talk about that first, and just your overall opinion of Harper, and does he fit in, plug in, play with Stephon Castle? Like, how does that work in San Antonio?
Okay, so let's take the team first. These 2 kids played their hearts out all year. I watched them practice early. I saw them play in Las Vegas in a tournament in November. Great kids. And almost no baggage for both of them. That's understandable with Dylan Harper, who, grew up in an NBA family. And I think Ace has got similar characteristics. What's happened in college basketball in the COVID era is, in the Big Ten particularly, you had a lot of 4th and 5th year guys playing. You have a lot of guys who shouldn't even be in college, but they stayed because the money's better than going to the G League and making 42 grand. And the Rutgers team that those 2 guys played on literally had no other high major players. It's probably a thing where they couldn't afford to buy anybody to transfer in.
Right.
And so they were a mid-major team with 2 great, precocious young guys. And, and Harper and Dylan missed a few Big Ten games, and they were still 8 and 12. It wasn't like they were 1 and 19. So they were really competitive, but they didn't have a lot of help. And in Dylan's case, to me, he's like a left-handed Cade Cunningham. Big and strong, gets downhill, crafty, gives the ball up at the right time, plays with a maturity and poise about him. He shot 33% from 3. That's got to get better. I think it will. The shot's not broken. I'm always of the opinion, unless you feel 2 guys are exactly the same level, always take the best talent. And I think that's what San Antonio will do. They'll take the second best player on the board, even though they have Castle, who they love, Rookie of the Year. They gave up a lot for De'Aaron Fox. And now R.C. Buford and Mitch Johnson have got to just figure out a way to make this work. I'm totally fine with that pick there. I think it's a 90% lock. But there's always part of me that makes me think that someone's lying about it's a done deal, And somebody like a VJ Edgecombe is kind of lurking there, could sneak into that spot. But I would have to, if you made me bet, I'd say Harper to the Spurs.
Well, if we assume 1 and 2 go chalk, the way it seems most likely will happen, number 3 becomes the most interesting pick, to me, and that's the Philadelphia 76ers, who are in their own weird spot. And it seems like there's a bit of, not a drop off, but there's more argument over who's the 3rd best player in this draft or who's the 3rd best pick. So what would you do if you were Philadelphia in that spot? Who are the players you'd be looking at?
Well, first of all, Daryl Morey's never had a top 10 pick in his career. So this is the first one. And we also all know that he's burning the phone lines because he's got a veteran team. He's going to get McCain back, Maxey, hopefully healthy, a healthy Embiid. So I think they're going to be in a process of making calls, and maybe I do think this, Adam. I've been doing this long enough, and you guys have been as well, and Legs played in the league. All I know is that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander went 11th, Tyrese Haliburton went 11th, Donovan Mitchell went 13th. You name it. Kawhi went 15th. I don't know that you can't get the same really good player at 5, 6, 7, 8 that you can at 3. So I do think Daryl's going to be on the phone. If it's me, I'm going to take VJ Edgecombe, and here's why. He's a tremendous athlete. He has absolutely no baggage. He is a hard worker. He plays both ends of the floor. He became a better shooter as the year went along. He's got all-star upside. The only negative I could find with him, and I spent a lot of time with Baylor in the Big 12, is he needs to be more selfish. I thought he was too unselfish as a freshman this year. Could have dominated more games, didn't do it because of his personality. He is going to have to become a killer, which I think he has in him, but he only showed it when Baylor got behind the 8 ball, and then we saw it. But you got to also throw Ace Bailey in there, who is a tough shot maker. People say he takes bad shots, and I'm like, no, he takes tough shots. But as you guys know, getting a tough shot off in the league with a low shot clock and making a tough shot is a very valued skill. And I think he has that as well.
Yeah, to your point right there, you're looking at one right now that just won an MVP, very likely to win an NBA Finals because of his ability to do exactly that. You just at the end of the day, you have that wild card at the end of a possession to make a tough mid-range contested jump shot, and Ace Bailey falls in that category. So he's on a lot of boards at number 4. And then there's a mixture. If you looked at 8 different mock drafts, you pulled them all up right now, starting at about 4 or 5 down to 10, they all look different. I want to ask you specifically about a guy because I was a little bit surprised that his name has jumped this high in the first round. Tell me why maybe I was missing something. Not that I don't like him. I don't want people to think I'm hating on Con Knipple, but I was a little bit surprised. Like he's jumped now, it looks like on most boards into the top 10. Would he be there for you as well?
I think he's top 10 legs, on my board, and I don't do a mock draft. I just watch him and give you my opinion. But I think he's top 10, but I don't think he's top 5 or 4 or 6. Let me tell you what I love about him. He's more than just a shooter. He is a great shooter, and he was in the top 8% on synergy in making contested shots. Like he has a distraction level that's really low. When a guy's flying at him, they're invisible. He's still going to make a shot, and he is a great shooter. He's got toughness. He plays with toughness around the basket. Now we know he's not scoring over length, but he's going to get fouled. He's not afraid to throw his body in there. He's a very good passer for a guy that is thought of as a scorer. So I like him a lot, and I like him. To be honest, I like Luke Kennard. He's having a good career. All these like 6'6" white guys at Duke all get thrown in. It's true, right?
No, 100%. Absolutely.
I like comparing, Con Knipple to Desmond Bane, for example, my buddy, who you just spent the whole, part of the show talking about. Because Desmond, although Con's probably got longer arms, because remember, Desmond had the 6'4",
for sure.
And it turned out okay. To the tune of 230.
Got an upper body like a bodybuilder. Yeah, I know.
Yes. And Con's got that kind of body, but I think he's definitely in the top 10. I definitely think he can be a good NBA player, a starter on a eventually a good team. He's probably going to go to a team that's not good, but I don't have any problem with taking Con later on in the lottery, 9, 10, 11, 12 for sure.
Well, another trend that's going on in the NBA lately, there's an influx of European players and really just international players, but it's evolving because we're starting to see some of these European players go to college, and maybe it's because of NIL. And I'm kind of curious. We have the MVPs over the last, 6 years or whatever, all been foreign-born players. So we know there's people are looking for talent there, but how is it evolving in recent years now that these guys are going through the NCAA circuit?
Well, it's a great question, Adam. Let me give you a little history lesson, and I say that respectfully, of course.
Sure.
Forget the Dream Team. Dream Team was the catalyst, but before the Dream Team, Hubie Brown, Dr. Jack, Dean Smith, Chuck Daly, they used to go on these junkets in the summer and speak in, the Italian Coaches Federation, Spanish Coaches Federation, all these different places. It'd be a great vacation, and you get to hang out with them. Ettore Messina, my buddy who was the former NBA assistant who coaches in Europe, he was the driver at 21 years old for Dean Smith. Now, why do I say this? Those great American coaches taught the game to the rest of the world. And in recent years, in the last 20 years, those coaches, and now a second generation, they're teaching the game back to us. It's cool. The globe shrunk. Spread pick and roll, 5 out. Passing centers at 7 feet like Jokic and others, Pau and Marc Gasol. So the globe has shrunk, And now what's happened also, there's so much resource being put on international talent by NBA teams, unlike when Legs was playing in the 90s, that it's hard to miss on a kid now. And when you throw in NIL in recent years, the last 5 years, instead of making like 75 grand as an 18-year-old playing in the Adriatic League, now they're getting 6 and 7 figure dollar value to come and play college, which is absurd. And hopefully it won't last now that we have this house settlement. But the landscape's changed, and these kids are now coming over to play college basketball. By the way, they all play with a 24-second clock, so they have a feel of how to play. Usually, and Legs knows this. You know this, Adam. They're all great teammates, and they fit in wherever you go, wherever you put Bogey Bogdanovic. He's going to fit in because he's a tough kid. He knows how to play in a team concept, and he can make shots. And that's how international basketball has affected the NBA and college.
And I think I just think people view now the likelihood that these guys are going to be hits when they're drafted. Like the skepticism around that is gone.
Right.
Like now you're open-minded to, hey, even if I never heard of the guy, whatever, but more and more of these guys are having an impact. So along those lines, you look at the top 10 right now, a couple of foreign players are in that category. I think the guy right now on most draft boards that's listed the highest, most likely to be taken in the top 8, say, is Nolan Traore from France.
Right.
What can you tell us about him as a point guard?
He's got great speed, and he's an athlete, and he's young. He's got to shoot it better. He's playing better lately. He got off to a very slow start, Legs, early in the French season. But I talked to some of my French coaching friends over there, and they said, don't just discount it a little bit because the kid's playing like 2 years straight. Like he went from the French league as a 17 and 18-year-old last year, tried out for the French Olympic team, didn't make it. Then he went to Australia to work out. I don't know, maybe his agent had something over there. Came back to the French Pro A League and got off to a slow start. But very athletic, terrific in the open court, has to shoot it better. I don't have him right now as a top 10 pick to me. Maybe I know too much about him, but absolutely a kid that's going to be a rotation point guard, likely coming off the bench early in his career till he figures the NBA out. But with a chance to be a good player and maybe an eventual starter someday. But very athletic in the realm of a kid that might come out of Chicago or Philly.
Let me follow up then with you because
Yes.
there's another French player that's also kind of up in that category. Certainly top 15, it looks like on most boards. Some places have him as high as 10. Noah Essang. What can you tell
Right.
us about him?
Again, another guy that I don't fall in love with. He's a terrific athlete. He's 6'8", 195, and he's a 4-man. That scares me. You just think about that. You guys see NBA basketball every night.
So let me
Extremely
ask you real
athletic.
quick, do you call him a 4-man because of limited ball handling and shooting ability? Like
Yes.
that's just his natural inclination is to do stuff more around the basket.
Yeah,
Can
if you
he
put
add
him in
that stuff
college,
to his game, do you think?
well, if you put him in college in like the Big East, you'd say, boy, he's really athletic. He's one of the most athletic players in the league. But how's he going to translate to the NBA? So he's similar. I think he's going to be a good player. Again, we're talking about 18, 19-year-old kids here. Some of these kids are not turning 19 until they start their NBA careers in November. Really like him. I'm going to give you a guy that's similar to those two French kids. And by the way, why France? Immigration from the former African colonies. They're going, the last 30 years, they emigrate to France and athletes, just like Chicago and Detroit. Now, Johan Beronji, there's one for you, okay? He's somewhere between 15 and 30 right now, 6'11", very young, one of the youngest in the draft, played in Slovenia this year, and major upside. He's legit 6'11", kind of like a younger version of Clint Capella. And he's my favorite international guy in this draft. Okay. Another French kid, again, like we talked about. I just see him as having a position, unlike Essang, Legs, we know what he is. He's a rim rolling, lob catching, court running shot blocker. I know where I can play him. I'm not sure where I can play Essang right now.
Another question I have for you, just general about trends in the NBA. It
Yes.
seems like the Pacers and the Thunder, very smart teams. They play a lot of guys, but they play smart. And to go deep in the playoffs, there's a lot of adjustments. You have to be able to adjust. So is that a trend you see? Obviously, I think it's a need, but do you see players filtering out now and teams asking themselves, I like this guy's skill set, but is he a guy that we think could make 20 adjustments through the course of a series and execute them? Is that something teams are valuing when they look at these players?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Adam. You guys know those two. I've known Kevin Pritchard a long time, Sam Presti as well. You're talking about, and I would say 20 of the 30 teams in the league are relatively well run. I think there's 10 that guys I grew up when coaching with who are running teams who don't know what they're doing, but that's another story. Okay. Uh, you guys could probably figure out some of those teams.
I think we've
But
had
I,
some of these conversations over a couple of beers.
yeah, we have. But yes, I think to your point, Adam. Like I'm looking at guys in this draft and going, if he's there, let me look where Oklahoma is right now because I know they got like what? Okay, here we go.
15.
Oklahoma, they got 15. I think 24 maybe. I'm looking at guys in the middle of the first round. I'm going, he's going to Oklahoma. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
or he fits Oklahoma. And similar with the Pacers, if you look at their roster, the way they've constructed it, a kid like Ben Shepherd, who doesn't always get minutes, but when he does, he's going to make shots and be a lockdown defender. How about our guy Cason Wallace, who's a tremendous young player, who's been given some rope in this playoffs. But when you look, they got the kid that's sitting out, Topic, who they love, the point guard from Serbia, who's redshirting. So to answer your question, and if you want me to give you a few Oklahoma City guys that I think are draftable, I will, because they absolutely know what they're doing as well as anybody.
So you know what? To follow up on our conversation we were having then, this is perfect along those lines. Before you joined us, when you heard, I think, some of our conversation about the trade, the Bane trade to Orlando, and they gave up four first-round picks. I mean, you think about that's a lot you would think of draft capital, but if you're Orlando and just looking at where those picks probably would fall, which are probably going to be bottom 10 first-round picks, do you think, looking at their situation, that's too much? Because you're a guy that, you know these drafts year after year. And like you just came on the air, the first thing you were talking about was the next draft. And you're probably 3 drafts down the road of knowing who's coming up the pipeline, just like you did with Cooper Flagg when he was 15. So in looking at that and looking at like these diamonds you can find sometimes in the bottom 10, but you got to hit it. Do you think if you're Orlando, they did the right thing in going acquiring this player that seems like a perfect need at age 26, even though they gave up that much draft capital?
I do. I mean, that's why you have capital. That's why Brooklyn has all those picks. They're in a different stage than OKC. That's why OKC's got picks out to kazoo down the line. They're not going to be able to draft everybody. They're going to have to trade some of those, or maybe they trade them for other first round picks when we're long gone, legs in like 2035, right?
That's right. That's right.
I hope not. But and I don't mean long gone from the earth. I mean, from but no, I think I think that's why you have those picks. That's why you accumulate assets, and I absolutely think they did the right thing. The great Hollywood director, William Goldman, he passed away a couple years ago. When they asked him what made a Hollywood hit, he said, nobody knows anything. And that's kind of like the NBA draft. Like if we all knew how good Jalen Brunson was. And by the way, you and I loved him because, my son was at Villanova. I didn't think he'd be this good.
Well, I remember sitting through a practice with you at Villanova when Jalen Brunson was there. You and I sat next to each other.
Yeah.
And right away, what stood out was the coaches weren't in the gym for the first 30 minutes. And Jalen Brunson ran that practice, and he sounded like a coach. And it was as buttoned up and as tight as it could be with the coaching staff in the gym. It stood out to me immediately. And they had by the way, they had other lottery picks in that gym, right? That was a great team. And it was so clear who the alpha was and how much leadership came his way. So you're right. I mean, you identify these things early on and their qualities that carry a long way, even if maybe you have some limitations athletically.
Yeah, and let me be honest. Like I always thought he was a first round pick, but I thought he was great for like that 20 to 30, go to a playoff team range. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Go to OKC, for example. But my point is, You don't know how these picks are going to turn out, whether it was Orlando taking them or now Memphis. And you can get Desmond Bane, as you guys said, at 26. And I got to tell you, I was laughing when I was listening to you guys because I got to know Desmond Bane as a freshman at TCU. He had one high major offer, TCU, late in the year. He's from Richmond, Indiana, right on the Indiana-Ohio border. We became very close through the years. And honestly, I didn't see this. I didn't see what he's become. I thought he'd be a good NBA player, maybe a rotation guy, maybe a starter. And I'm going to be the first to say this, no. But obviously, to answer your question, I think it's perfect for Orlando because you don't know how those picks are going to turn out.
Well, this is the last one I got for you, Fran, and we'll let you get out of here. And by the way, I'm up in Denver. You're in Colorado Springs. I'm trying to recruit Legs to Colorado. He's thinking about it. He's thinking about it.
It's
so
awesome.
we gotta send him some photos or something just to keep the recruiting going. But I'm going to ask you, and we do this every show. We have a FanDuel shout out segment where we talk about different shout outs that we'd like to give. And right now in the NBA, one of the things that's big is there's a lot of teams in the back half of the first round who have picks, but they're in contention. And players who are able to play now maybe don't have as much of an upside, but could they be the 7th or 8th guy in a rotation? That's really valuable. So who are some of the guys in the back half of the first round, or are there any that you think could contribute to winning basketball in year one?
Tons, Adam. Neek, kid in your backyard, Neek Clifford at Colorado State. He's a Colorado Springs kid. Started at Colorado, ended up at Colorado State. He's kind of like he's almost a clone of Tyrese Haliburton. 6'6" point guard, can shoot it, athletic, probably a little more athletic than Tyrese. He comes to mind immediately. Carter Bryant, a kid from Arizona, who averaged like 8 points a game this year, didn't start, but has long-term future as an NBA small forward, can really shoot it. He comes to mind. Danny Wolf, this is a kid you're going to love. This is a family friend, so you might say, what? Huh? Danny Wolf is Kelly Olynyk, okay? And all Kelly's going to do is play 12 years. So before a fan, you know what I mean? Don't poo-poo me here.
No.
Now. You guys know you need second unit guys.
No question. Really you're talking to one. I had 10 years as that guy. So yeah, I understand. No, I'm not. Look at a guy like Kelly Olynyk, because you can plug him in anywhere and he's never going to hurt you because of his IQ, and he's got a skill set, and he fits. So like, no, that's a great comparison. If a guy picked there turns into have a career like Kelly Olynyk, you hit a home run.
And I wasn't talking to you. I was talking about the listeners' Legs and the viewers. and honestly, Adam, I love Thomas Sorber from Georgetown. He's a 6'11", physical, tough, hard-nosed kid. Like Boston's going to be looking for help on the front line. Luke Cornett's a free agent. What are they going to do with Al? What is Boston going to do anyway? Because they've got a million decisions to make. And they're going to have to add some guys on that front line. They got the 28th and 32nd pick. They would kill for a kid like Danny Wolf or Thomas Sorber. So, I as always, there's going to be kids that slide into the late part of the first round. They're going to end up being really good NBA players.
Let me ask you about one more then before we go, because he fascinated me, because you know how it is with all the NBA games on watch. It's hard sometimes to follow the regular season in college basketball to the extent that I want to, but I certainly pick it up when you get into the conference tournaments and NCAA tournament. And this guy captivated a lot of people. Walter Clayton from Florida, and the run he had in the postseason really opened some eyes. He's probably slotted anywhere from 22 to 29, most of these draft boards.
Yep.
What do you think about his NBA prospects?
It's awfully reminiscent of Jalen Brunson. I don't know if he's going to be that good, but think about the comparisons, right? National champion, big shot taker, big shot maker, got better every year. He started at Iona with Patino, ended up with Todd Golden. If you ask me how his NBA career is going to go, rotation guy, off the bench, making shots, not a pure point guard. Could put him in some pick and roll. But again, if you're drafting him 22 to 30, if you can get a kid that can, be in your rotation early on, older guy, a lot of experience, and he can make shots, and he's a guy that made tough shots. You make him in front of 70,000 and do it consistently, you're doing something right. I like him a lot. Don't love him for early. And yet I could be wrong, Legs, and he could end up being Jalen Brunson. But definitely a good prospect, again, for a playoff type team that can utilize that experience and, plug and play him early in his career. Some of these kids going early, you cannot plug and play them. They're too inexperienced. The French kids, Carter Bryant, maybe even VJ early. Some of these older guys, you can plug and play them, especially if you're putting them in on good teams.
Well, producer James, go ahead and cue that outro music. Fran, this was fantastic. I mean, it was absolutely fantastic information, and we appreciate you taking some time out of your day for us.
It's my pleasure. I haven't done the draft on ESPN in about 6 years because of Woj. That's okay. Legs and I have got a renaissance at ESPN because talent trumps fluff.
There you go, man. There you go.
Hey, nobody on the planet knows this stuff better than the guy sitting right there between us, Adam. Fran Fraschilla is the guy I go to for everything.
See you, man.
Hey, do you mind hanging on the line? We're going to close out the show, but I got one little thing for you offline. I think you'll get a kick out here. Everybody else that's watching, thanks so much. Make sure you throw us a like. We are back tomorrow. Make sure you're subscribed. We'll see you then.
Silly like the mayor.